Hi, I'm Gina and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we're going to be starting a new project which is pretty exciting. It is going to be a bit of a fusion of styles. So taking inspiration from Bentley House Minis, it is going to be a Victorian styled exterior as with a 70s interior. I've also taken inspiration from these couple of images as well, which is one is a Victorian abandoned mansion. I love the colouring of the outside of this particular piece, so keen to kind of see how I can bring through some of those details with the colour. And then also I've got a 1973 House and Garden magazine, so very much modern interior for the 70s style, and then mixed with the exterior of the Victorian mansion. The dollhouse that I'm actually going to be using is from a New Zealand company called Laser It. I will link their website below because I think that if we can support as many local companies as possible, that's absolutely fantastic. I know Aira from Bentley House Minis has used a Fairfield, which is one that we are unable to get in New Zealand. Well, you can get it in New Zealand, it just costs an absolute arm and a leg to actually get it shipped here. So I'm using this particular style dollhouse. So this is it here, that's 1/24 scale, which means that it is actually a lot smaller than the 1/12 scale, which is the Addams Family mansion that I've got here. So this is made out of foam board and cardboard, so it's very malleable and it's very easy to kind of shape. But it does come with its limitations because it can be a little bit flimsy. Whereas this is the laser cut. It's made out of MDF, it's 3mm MDF, and it's pretty strong and sturdy. And because it's laser cut and not pressed out of plywood, which I've got another dollhouse that's been done like that and it doesn't really fit together all that perfectly well. And I think that's some of the struggles that Aira from Bentley House Minis is also having with hers, because hers is pressed out. This is laser cut and it just fits together beautifully. It's really well designed, it's really well put together. These are just sort of kind of sitting here, but you can actually see that even just with one hand, without too much effort, it just fits into place. So I've kind of built it this far. Like I said, everything apart from the foundation is just sitting here. It's not glued into place or anything like that yet. So in today's video, we're going to kick off with the foundation, as well as creating some floor plans for the ground floor. So without further ado, let's get started. When the kit arrives, this is how it comes. There's a set of instructions with some pictures of what the dollhouse looks like once it's finished. What I'm going to do is just separate out the instructions for the foundation, and then everything is just laser printed onto sheets, and it looks a bit of a hot mess at the moment, but it will actually come together as we kind of go through it a little bit further. So I'm just picking out the pieces that I need to get the foundation started. And because it's all on one sheet, as the laser cuts out these particular patterns, it leaves a part of the board in place, like a little tab, just so that everything will stay in place. So that's what I'm doing here, is just cutting out those little tabs just so that I can get those pieces that I need for the foundation just to pop out, which is really simple. I did find later on that I could actually just break them off rather than using craft knife, but you live and you learn. As well as some of these larger pieces. So once everything's kind of pulled out, I'm just going to put them together, sit them together and just dry fit them first. Everything's on a pictorial kind of instructions rather than nothing's kind of labeled ABC or anything like that. It's just all kind of pictures. So here I'm just sort of working my way through each of the pieces to work out which bits fit where. What I worked out was that there were 3 identical pieces which I could quite easily just fit down the middle. So then once we've kind of got this border created, then I can go ahead and place the top piece on top. So I'm at this stage again, I'm just dry fitting it. Once I was happy with everything and how it kind of fitted into place, I went back and just to put a little bit of glue on all of the pieces and then let it dry overnight. Moving on to the floor plan, the first thing I wanted to do was work out what all the room sizes are. And in order to do that, I have actually popped out all of the walls. Actually, to be honest with you, I was more curious about how it was all going to fit together. And so I was wanting to play around with the walls, but it was a dual purpose because I needed to work out where all the windows are and doorway openings, so that when I'm designing each of the spaces or translating that onto a paper, I know that, especially for the kitchen, which bits I can actually, where all the cabinets need to go. So yeah, just pop those in place, and then I've just got my ruler out and I'm just measuring out the width and the depth of each of the rooms, and just writing that actually onto the foundation there. So on the left hand side, as it looks on the picture that you can see right here, on the left hand side is going to be the kitchen. The central piece will be the entrance and hallway, and on the right hand side will be the dining room. So all I'm doing here is translating those measurements that I've taken from that floor plan when the walls were in place, and translating those onto the grid paper that I've got there. This will allow me to design the floor plan for the kitchen especially, which was the bit that I was probably the most concerned about. There's not that much room for sort of trial and error, which is generally how I kind of build these things. I kind of build a little bit and then add onto it and add onto it. So this is probably the first time I've really kind of sat down and really spent some time actually designing it out. So here I'm just marking out the windows and the door, and then the next part is to go through and create the floor plan. So taking out the inspirational piece, which is my 1973 Home and Garden magazine, what I'm going to do here is just double check what I've created and add in any bits that I've missed. Things like the upper cabinets, just sort of having a look to see how they are placed within the design, and then also adding in things like the dishwasher, as well as the oven and stove top type of thing, or actually that's the stove top because it's got wall oven. The range hood, which will be integrated into the cabinet, as well as some upper cabinets as well. So once I'm kind of happy with all of that, I'm just marking it all out so that when I refer back to it again, I know exactly what it is that I've done. And then we're just going to basically repeat the same process with the living room. It does have the bay window, which does add a little bit more complexity, I guess, to it, but it is quite a nice little feature. So just using the same piece of paper, we're going to follow the same process, just marking out the floor plan, and then adding in all the areas for the windows and doors, just so that I know exactly where they are. And then I'm just going to start marking out some of the bigger pieces of furniture, like the dining table, like there's a side table. I'm just going to add some lines in here for potentially where some window coverings are going to go, because I don't have those in the kitchen, so the dining room will definitely have some sort of soft furnishings around the openings to any of the windows and doors. I've just added the bay window off to one side because the piece of paper wasn't quite long enough, and just again adding in where the windows are. And then I had to think about what sort of furniture would I want to have placed in here, and I kind of went maybe a couple of sort of occasional tub type chairs, not too sure. Just sort of a nice sort of sitting space. If you have an evening meal, maybe that could be a place to kind of just relax or before the meal. And then just to fill in a bit of the space at the beginning of the room, I've just added in some sort of sculptural chairs. I've just drawn them square here, but ultimately once I get into this space, I can have a go at what type of chairs I might want to add in here. Maybe some Wosley chairs or something like that, something sculptural, something modern, something very 70s. So that's what I was thinking of when I was creating those there. So going through, making sure everything's all nicely labelled so that when I kind of come back to it a couple of months later, I know exactly what my thought process was around creating these different spaces. And the other thing I'm going to do is add in any of the details that I am currently thinking about for the wall coverings. So what sort of color scheme am I thinking of for in here? What's the flooring going to be? You know, anything like that, any other details that I can start to add in that will ultimately help me in the long run. And then I'm just going back through over the kitchen and doing the same thing there as well. For the entranceway, it was exactly the same process as the other two rooms, although there's a lot less involved in the entranceway, but I still wanted to make sure that the thoughts that I was having around that I could capture down on paper. So adding things in like a hall stand or hall table, things like a coat rack, thinking about how I might want to hang sort of faux coats on the wall, and thinking about the balustrade on the stairwell. It is Victorian dollhouse kit, so the balustrade is very Victorian, but potentially they may have in the 70s removed that detail. There's no other detail in any other rooms, so just wanted to capture some thoughts around what I could potentially do there. So yeah, that's it. That's the start of the project.